Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The USC commitment sweatshirt comes back on as five-star wide receiver Jerome Myles, making it official, committing to this USC program. Now, the USC fans who've been rocking with the boys the last couple of weeks know we've talked a lot about Jerome Myles, one of my favorite wide receivers in this 2025 cycle. And I think where you got to start, like if I were to sell the USC fans on Jerome Myles, 6'2", 210 pounds, state champ in the 100-meter dash, running a 10.33. This kid, in terms of size and speed, I don't think it gets much better. Now, I think what's so exciting about Jerome Myles, I think there's a lot more about his game that I think USC and Lincoln Riley can really tap into. And you go back to the wide receiver tape at the high school level, he is, kind of primarily a vertical guy, just using that size and speed to work vertically and make plays down the football field. But you do see the flashes of some pretty clean route running, but also what he can do after the catch. Now, has that all been accessed at the high school level? No, probably not. And I think that's what makes him so exciting, projecting him to the collegiate level, where I think there's so much in terms of what this kid can do for this USC offense that he brings to the table. And I think one of the more important and kind of exciting conversations, you don't talk about five-star wide receivers being dogs in terms of blocking on the perimeter. Jerome Myles is one of those guys. And that's really important when you talk about this USC offense. Like Lincoln Riley wants to get it out to the perimeter, wants to get his playmakers in space in order to have a ton of success doing so. You need your other wide receivers to block down the field effectively. I think it's something you've seen USC do a really good job of so far in the 2024 season. Jerome Myles at 6'2", 210, and then having that mentality that he wants to physically impose his will on the perimeter. Like he can get it done in the blocking department as well. This kid checks a lot of boxes. Fired up to get into the film. Now, before we get into it, as always, massive shout out to the USC fans, whether we're talking the recruiting trail, talking this 2024 team, all the fight ons in the comment section, that stuff, it means the world. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And again, I think you start with, I don't even think this kid has scratched the surface in terms of what he can be at the collegiate level. You go back to the junior year, 19 catches, 486 yards, and 6 touchdowns, only played in 5 games. I think what you love most about that stat line, he's scoring a touchdown in like 1/3 of his catches, but more importantly, 26 yards per reception. Like this is an explosive, dynamic, playmaking wide receiver that you can get involved in a lot of different ways. Again, I think it starts with what he can do vertically. I mean, when he starts working vertically down the field, we talked about it yesterday. Like it's hard to find defensive backs that can just straight up run with Jerome Myles because he's one of the fastest players in this 2025 class, but then find me a defensive back that can not only run with Jerome Myles, but then also handle Jerome Myles in terms of 6'2", 210 at the catch point. Like, I just don't think there's many defensive backs that have the physical traits in terms of size and speed to match up with what Jerome Myles can bring to this USC offense. I think what stood out to me the most in terms of talking about Jerome Myles, and we're going to get into the film in just a second, I promise. Early August, maybe mid-August, his high school Corner Canyon was playing IMG. Corner Canyon didn't really have a chance in that football game unless Jerome Myles took over the football game, and that's exactly what Jerome Myles did. 5 catches, a $125, 3 touchdowns against IMG. And if you're familiar with IMG, that roster, I mean, he's going up against legitimate Power 4 talent on the outside, and Jerome Myles just kind of looked a little different. He stood out, and that was something that, to me, when I'm looking at these high school kids, you have the ability to stand out against IMG and look a little bit different on the football field. I think that says something about you. Now, getting into the film again, the films are really fun to watch because you see not only just raw talent, but you see him kind of putting it together. But I think most excitingly is that I think there's so much more to this kid's game than you see on the film. You start firing it up top of your screen right here. Again, if you want to go single high safety look, like good luck. Like Jerome Myles just running by a lot of defensive backs pretty routinely. And then when he decides to kind of turn on the jets, you can see he's by far the fastest player on the football field. What I'm most excited for about Jerome Myles is this is kind of how he was primarily used at the high school level, just working vertically, tracks the football well. Obviously, the size speed combination makes him really hard to deal with. I couldn't believe how many times defenses were going to single high looks with Jerome Myles on the field because you lead Jerome Myles top of your screen here with one defensive back. Like, it's kind of wraps. And again, he's really good at creating separation vertically. Now, what really excites me about Jerome Myles' game is when you start working those intermediate concepts like Jerome Myles is. I mean, he's 6'2", 210, so he's a big body over the middle of the field. But then what he can do after the catch. I mean, he's really good with dealing with contact. Obviously, extremely fast football player. I think Jerome Myles can do a lot more than what you kind of see on the film. And I think that's really exciting for a lot of USC fans. Again, creating separation. The ball skills and physicality at the catch point are really impressive too. And I think that's sometimes what's kind of left out with a lot of these super fast wide receivers. They might be the fastest player on the football field at the high school level, but don't necessarily have a ton of wide receiver traits. Like Jerome Myles, not only big and fast, but this kid in terms of body control, being physical at the catch point, having that coordination, he certainly has that as well. Continue to work through the film. You continue to see the kind of same old stuff, right? Just chewing defensive backs up vertically, really, really physical at the catch point. Love how he uses body, like high point this football, use every bit of that 6'2", 210 frame to go up and grab it, contested catches. Again, you found a defensive back that can run with them. You don't find many defensive backs that can deal with the physicality at the catch point. Instincts in terms of a little scramble drill out here. Not sure how he creates the separation, but look at the body control. 6'2", 210, getting 2 feet in, counts on Sundays. And then what you see as you work into the film a little bit more, as a lot of vertical work. This kid is a dog in the run blocking department too. And when he's asked to block on the perimeter, you can tell he wants to. Again, really, really clean body control, contorting the body, getting the feet in. And then let's look at him being physical, right? If you're USC, you run a lot of these concepts like swing passes, screens. You got to have wide receivers that are willing to get it done, blocking on the perimeter. Jerome Myles not only has the physical traits to be that kind of guy at 6'2", 210, you can tell between the ears, like he wants to get it done in the run blocking department. And that's what fires me up most about Jerome Myles. Taking a look at USC's class in 2025, it's kind of been a wild ride, right? USC got super hot in the spring. Guys like Justice Terry committing to USC obviously went through a little bit of a lull. A couple of guys decommitting. You look back up and say top 15 in the class, going to go up as they factor in Jerome Myles. But what stands out to me is all the speed that you're going to have around Julian Lewis. You know what I mean? Like you start scrolling down to Nick Hines, 10.45 in the 100-meter dash. Corey Sims, a big body. Romaro Eisen, 10.8. Like USC is filling this wide receiver room up with just a ton of diverse bodies, right? Nick Hines, not necessarily the most physically developed wide receiver, but one of the fastest players in this class. You look at Corey Sims, 6'3", 205, really smooth mover. Romaro Eisen, a little bit smaller, but runs a 10.8 in the 100-meter dash. And then you have that true wide receiver one in Jerome Myles, who I think he's going to be a first-round NFL draft pick in the next couple of years. Again, you don't see these kind of kids grow on trees coming out of high school. You know that Lincoln Riley's going to have good quarterback play. The wide receiver room for USC is going to continue to be loaded over the next couple of years. I can go back to the 2024 class, talk about a guy like Xavier Jordan, who I think on a lot of Power 4 programs would probably be playing a lot of football. As a Michigan fan myself, he'd probably be our wide receiver one. And just not getting a ton of opportunity right now because of how good USC is in the pass catcher room. Look, you got a ton of guys who are sophomores in college right now. We're going to be back on this USC team in 2025 at the wide receiver spot. Quarterback play is going to be good. Lincoln Riley's rolling on the recruiting trail. We'll close it out there. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.